All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy.
All right, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill. So far, we've got Ken, 69th Blizzard,
Hey,
Marcus Almighty, Mark,
Hello.
and Awaken the Sun. You know, winter's coming. Winter's coming, Daniel.
Darkness. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I hope I enjoy this episode. Anyway,
Darkness.
I said that at the beginning. So
Yeah, so Friday the 13th. And Lonnie hopefully will show up. And if not, I've got his scores for the episode anyway. So we are celebrating. And honestly, we are going to be celebrating Animalize, 40 years strong. And I spent the week listening to this album. I've also been writing about this album because this album, or at least the genesis of this album, forms the very last chapter in what will be War Machine. And it's really interesting to kind of look at some of the history before we start talking about the album. So I'm just going to monologue for a moment and just remind everyone that the Lick It Up tour concluded in, I think it was Evansville, Indiana on March the 17th, 1984. Immediately after that, Vinny was basically told to go off and work on some demos. So he actually hooked up with Hirsch Gardner from Warrior in New England and went to Burlington, Massachusetts, where he started working on demos on his own. The rest of the band, Eric, Gene, who's that guy? Oh, yeah, Paul. Basically started working on pre-production. Michael James Jackson was part of the picture at the same time. He was working with Armored Saint. He had been all year to that point. He'd also been working with Michael DeBray, or however you say his name. His new project was Steve Jones, Checkered Past. But it's kind of interesting, you know, April the 16th, he gets a message from Paul Stanley to get in touch with Holly Knight. Now, Holly Knight obviously had been in Spider, who were managed by Coin, but it's clear that even at that point, Paul Stanley is starting to look outside of Vinnie Vincent for a songwriting partner. And as we know, he does hook up with Desmond Child. Gene and he both start writing with a friend, Mitch Weissman, and another friend, Jean Beauvoir. So Vinny's off in Burlington recording demos. He ends up with 7 demos: Street Rockers, Twisted, Shoot You Full of Love, Animal, Gypsy in Her Eyes, and Boys Are Gonna Rock. So those are the songs that could have been Vinny's contributions to Animalize had he survived, you know, but it was clear that it was over. He'd been shit-canned after the end of the European Lick It Up tour. And they'd actually had rehearsals for a replacement guitarist in December 1983 before bringing him back for the U.S. leg. So that's kind of the history of where we get into Animalize. Animalize is obviously the era where Daniel becomes a fan. It's the album before I became a fan. It's an album that had a video that was strongly in rotation on MTV. And it's also the album for which we have quite a lot of officially released products. Interestingly, I'm just going to go through some of this stuff. This is an advanced tape for the album. Only lists Paul Stanley, no mention of Gene Simmons. So Gene did eventually fight and get an associate producer credit. We also have the Poughkeepsie off the soundboard, which is, of course, a live release from this album. And we've got the MTV concert, the Animalize Live Uncensored release, and I think that's the unofficial Brazilian DVD. There's a Laserdisc scan that is much better, and bootlegs of that album have come out for the live MTV show in recent years on various Japanese labels with, you know, more of the show, less of the overdubs and all that shit. So let's just go around the table. Lonnie, thanks for joining us, by the way.
Thank you.
You know, and go back to your histories with Animalize and where it fits in. And it's only fitting to start with Daniel.
Yeah, this was my genesis of becoming a Kiss fan. Heavens on Fire, alongside with the album, was the start off for me. I think I got the 2 albums, Animalize and Asylum, sort of at the same time, but Heavens on Fire was always the gateway for me into Kiss fandom. And '84 was a beautiful year to become a music fan because there were loads of great records. If you go down the list and check out the best rock albums from '84, man, there are some cool albums that were released in those days. So, and I think it's an interesting album. Right off the bat, I enjoyed the Paul songs, and the Gene songs. I had to listen to quite a few times before I found a single one I liked. But I have one that I kind of like. So Animalize is a really important album for me.
Lonnie, what about you? Being the youngest on this panel, I guess.
I
Where did you go?
I had a cassette of Animalize. Pretty young. I think maybe 9 or 10. I think I had a cassette of it, and
that was last year.
What?
That was last year,
right? And wore the crap out of the cassette, like we all did in those days. And I have a good mom reference for the Animalize. My mom, she didn't like Kiss. She thought Kiss were satanic, and she didn't approve.
But Lauren, I just have to ask you: your mom was she really religious or what?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay,
sure. My mom was super religious, and she, believed what she would hear about Kiss, and
yeah,
would allow us to listen to what we wanted to listen to, but was not a fan. And one day, I had my cassette of Animalize, and I was looking at the pictures and that there's the cool picture of them like standing over like that little stream of fire. And one day I for some reason the album, the jacket from the cassette was just gone. 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 And I'd never seen it. I'd never. And I like inexplicably, like, where is it? And I asked my mom, and she said that the dog must have ate.
Oh.
And you believe that?
So I saw my cassette. I should have brought up my cassette of Animalize. It doesn't have the sleeve.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go from missing cassette covers to Ken, as someone who is well established in the Kiss Army. At the time this album comes out, what were you thinking? Where were you at when you first experienced Animalize?
Yeah, I was, I saw Kiss on the prior tour, prior number of tours, few tours, and Lick It Up was a great album, so I thought, okay, well, this next album should be pretty darn good, too. I heard the rumblings about the, I think, guitarist, changing and that kind of stuff, and I thought that was kind of, I was like, what are we going to get now? So, yeah, it was good. I mean, hearing the first single from that, leading off everything, I thought, okay, they're going for another. I mean, I thought, it's a great song. It's another attempt at, Lick It Up type song. It's very similar. So I figured the rest of the album would be kind of maybe closer to Lick It Up, in the same vein. So yeah, it was any new album coming out by Kiss was always great, and you played it millions of times, as you do with any new Kiss album. And sometimes over time, you can then get a feel of, is this really, is this as good as the prior album, or how does these songs start standing up? You can, how well do they stick with you, and that sort of thing. I think when you first get it, you like it a lot, and then over time, the more you hear certain songs, you go, okay, well, that is really, it's a good song, but not as good as some of this, past stuff or this or that. But anyway, it's still a really good album, after listening to it just the other day. I enjoy the whole thing. I mean, nothing skips. Yeah, there's some ones that are not as good as some other ones, but it's still it's a solid effort, Either way, I mean, yes, it could have been better, but it's still a solid effort. So,
All right,
it was a
fellow
good time.
Asylumite, Mark, what about for you?
Well, from what I remember, my sister once again was the introduction to this because she was the one who was the big Kiss fan in '84. Around that time, I distinctly remember her getting the 7-inch single of "Heaven's on Fire," playing it in the house quite a bit, and then obviously got the album when it came out as well. I do remember hearing it played quite a bit, and I from what I remember initially, I did like it, but at that point, something else had happened that kind of diverted me away from that record, and that was I was hugely into Rush, and Grace Under Pressure had come out in that same year, so of course that was like, okay, forget Kiss, I'm going to be now listening to Rush, right? And because that, like I said before, when I first heard Exit Stage Left the very first time, I was immediately hooked into music. That was my entry point into music in general, right? So they've always been my number one record or band at least, right? But I did remember liking it initially, and then as I got older and started listening to Kiss more seriously back again, as my love of Kiss went back to these astronomical levels like we all are at now, I more critical of the record now than I was obviously when I was much younger, right? I've always said this before, that I sometimes wish nowadays I could go back and listen to records how I did when I was younger, when I didn't know about production and all this other stuff, and all these little secrets about guest musicians and this and that, when I was just listening to it purely for the love of the music, which was much different than how most of us listen to it now, and how we're much more critical of it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously MTV, the videos all over the place, but I wasn't into the band in '84. And I got the album. It didn't come very soon after I became a fan because the cover was just boring. And I was picking albums to catch up on from the catalog by visual appeal of the covers. So stuff like Rock and Roll Over or Dynasty Shiny, those were the things. I eventually got it. It wasn't that far, on from when I had become a fan. But again, I'm kind of impacted by one very unhappy memory that occurs after I become a fan, to later find out that Binghamton, New York, where I was living, was one of the fucking shows where Mark St. John performed with Kiss. And I lived there, but I wasn't going to concerts at that point, and I wasn't a fan. So it's kind of like, well, you don't know what you're missing out. Yeah, but I missed out on that, So it's always been a little bit of a bitter memory from that point of view. When I got the album, 14-year-old brain didn't pick apart the songs, didn't critique it like we're about to do, just listened to them. Logs in Fireplaces didn't bother me in the slightest, nor did the Burning of Bitches. It was just an album, and I always tended more to enjoying Paul's stuff, and Paul in that era was just a powerful and attractive vocal. So as an album, it was fine. It's only later on that you start picking up baggage along the way as you listen to more and more music. And once you start doing podcasts and writing books or compiling books, it just it's a slippery slope. Now we know that they were already talking in May '84 that Vinny was gone and that Mark Norton was coming into the group, and the next album was going to be called Animalize. You only know that in hindsight because the little bits and pieces, the breadcrumbs, just weren't available to people in 1984. So it's a fun album. Before we get started, one question to Mark and Daniel, who've done the riff-offs episodes. Have you guys ever done any riffs from this album as part of those guitar explorations you've shared with us?
I've actually done two of them. I enjoy two riffs. One Paul Stanley song and one Gene Simmons song. I enjoy the main riff of I've Had Enough Into the Fire. You know that that's a cool riff. And the other one is the main riff to Burn, Bitch, Burn, which I think is a really heavy riff. And it's by far my favorite Gene song on the album. I don't think Mark has done anything from Animalize, I mean.
No, I think I
No.
might have just did like 4 or 5 seconds of Burn Bitch Burn as well in a comparison, but I know you mainly played it like the most of it, Ray.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could play Heavens on Fire because that's fucking easy. So is the solo. All right. One last thing before we get going. I want to just do a or down, like the video, of where you think this album is going to fall. Lonnie, is this going to be Heavens on Fire or Heavens on Fire?
Heaven's on Fire is what's going to happen.
Mark?
I have a bad feeling.
Down.
Ken, the optimist.
I don't know. Heaven's on Fire.
Oh, it's a tie.
It's a tie.
I'm surprised you didn't explode when you did that. All right, Daniel, what about you?
I think it's a tie. I think it's
a log in the wrong fire.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to put a little.
I think it's such a strange album.
Backstory.
Half of the songs are great, and half of the songs are surely not great. So it's a difficult album to digest and grade.
All right. Well, don't call me Shirley. Let's get into this. Starting with our usual refocusing on these albums, we are breaking this into 2 sections. The first section is going to be overall, so production, cohesiveness, cover art and packaging, single selection, and taste to come up with a score. And then we'll go by the songs according to points for lyrics, points for melody, and taste, which is nearly binary. It's either you like it, you don't like it, or meh, you don't give a shit. One way or the other. That's just for Ken, so he can have his tie. All right, let's start with Lonnie on here, and I'm going to start with Lonnie because I'm totally picking on him because
I haven't been here.
You have an opinion, and you also have the lowest opinion of this album overall. So why don't you run us through your production, cohesive art, and single select? Well, leave the singles. We'll do that one separate.
Production, I'm going to say this a lot, is that this album just has not aged well for me at all. I mean, it's totally just Kiss trying. It's one of the first times of them really trying to say, oh, this is what's popular, so we're going to go over here now. And it doesn't sound like a Kiss album to me when you pick it up and listen to it. It's too trendy for 1984. It sounds like a 1984 album, not a Kiss album. You know, Daniel is sitting back, arms crossed, really upset with me right now. And the production on it just doesn't do it for me. The guitar is just all over the place. It's not, Kiss is, Ace was more of a just a classic rock type of player, kind of bluesy in a way, and it's not that at all. And while Vinny was, I like Vinny and Vinny's solos. Mark St. John is just all over, and you can see why it didn't work, because it doesn't even sound like a Kiss record to me. So the production for it, I gave it a 3. That it's fine in spots. I love Heavens on Fire, and I gave it the cohesiveness. I gave it a 4 because it all kind of sounds a lot alike. They all kind of sound the same. So cohesive, yeah, that's pretty. It's cohesive, but the cover art, as Julian referenced, is terrible. For one of the most visual bands of all time, and a band that had just taken off the makeup and is like really image focused, that's what the album cover is. I don't know whose decision that was. Maybe Julian probably does, but
who was selling bum bags or fanny packs with that design in recent years? Who was doing trim on god awful jackets with that stuff? Who was wearing that during the Live to Win tour? Yeah. Okay. So who was it? Who clearly enjoys the Jersey Shore show and all the leopard skin print those chicks were wearing? But it was in at the time. Guys were wearing spandex with that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. But for one of the most visual bands ever, who's very image focused, and here we are, we don't have the makeup on. We're not even going to be on the cover of the album.
Much like Revenge.
and the Elder.
True.
Are you true?
But I still think Revenge's cover is a hell of a lot better than that.
Oh well.
All right, I'll come back to you for singles and your overall taste on that, but let's go from one extreme to the other. Daniel, as the person who ranks this the highest overall, you've got to respond to Lonnie bagging on that. Surely you can defend it.
Well, Lonnie being a kid, it's of course difficult for him to understand the greatness of the cover, seeing it in the mid '80s. He was just a toddler sucking on a pacifier and waiting for the '92 Revenge album. So but back in the middle '80s, when you had a look at this album cover, it was really cool because that was the thing back then. Leopard skins and that kind of stuff was cool. So back in the day, I remember looking at the album and thinking, wow, this looks way better than, for example, Lick It Up and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed how they looked. When you flipped the album and you looked at the back cover, it was sort of a Mel Gibson movie. Yeah, I know some people think that Paul Stanley has too much hair in that picture, but you can never have too much hair or too long hair. It's just
It
cool.
looks weird.
Yeah, maybe a bit too much afro
too
looking,
high.
Yeah, a little bit too high. He makes Eric Carr envious. Yeah. So back in the day, I thought it looked cool. Nowadays, it's middle of the road. I thought Revenge looked cool as well in '92, and when I look at it now, it's kind of flat. But they have done way worse covers. You just have to go back to The Elder, which is way worse. And they tried to do something, but they could have made it more. I don't know. It looks kind of flat nowadays, but I like the way it looked back in the day. The band was on fire, of course. You talked about Mark St. John. Yeah, he's the weak link on this record. Even though I do enjoy some of the stuff he did on the album, but the mind boggles when you think what he just looked out of place in every picture with the band. Even the thing I remember of Mark St. John from the Heavens on Fire video is him looking perplexed. Do you remember that look in the video? It does something like this. Wow, I'm in the greatest band on earth. What am I doing here? And that's probably how he felt at times. He was a hired gun. He was actually a teacher, I think, a guitar teacher. And why they picked him, has always been sort of a mystery.
It's who you know.
Yeah.
Grover Jackson, I think, was the big thing.
Grover Jackson. Yeah. They asked him or who was hot. And here's just something for anyone listening to this now or later. If you've got one of Mark St. John's teaching business cards, I'd love a scan of that for War Machine. That'd be a big help.
Yeah,
Sorry, Daniel, continue.
Yeah, but production-wise, I really enjoy the '97 remastered version. I think that sounds really cool. I know the album has taken a lot of flack. People say it sounds mushy and weak, but when I listen to that remaster from '97, I really enjoy, especially Eric Carr's drumming, the vocals. I think the guitars sound pretty cool as well, so I still think it holds up pretty well, and I listen to it every year still. I don't go back and listen to The Elder every year unless I have to because of the podcast. Unless you force me. It's Julian's fault.
All right, I'll go next briefly. I'm middle of the road. This you can have a maximum of 60 points in this section. I gave it 30. I mean, production, middle of the road, 3 out of 5. It's okay. It's not great. There's nothing spectacular. They did the drums fast because they were doing them with Michael James Jackson, and then they have to get Alan Schwartzberg back in because one of Eric Carr's problems early on was not enough hi-hat. So that's why Schwartzberg comes in to do the overdubs of some of the percussive elements of the drumming. Cohesiveness, 3 out of 5. Yeah, it's generally a pretty cohesive album to me. It's like a shopping cart with one dud wheel. You go for a bit and then a Gene song comes along. You go for a bit and then a Gene song comes along and clunk. And it's really a little bit like that, but that's middle of the road. Cover art, I've already It's nondescript, but it's very much fitting in the time and style for what was cool. Look at how the guys in Dokken looked on Tooth and Nail era. Look at how the guys in Europe looked for Wings of Tomorrow era. Look at the guys in Twisted Sister, for Stay Hungry. It's all part of the era, and you can spell that ERA or ERROR. Your choice of the word to use there. And then we'll talk about the singles in a minute. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm kind of like in the middle as well. Excuse me. Because the production of it, I never really had too much of a problem with it. I mean, if you think about it from the time period that it was recorded in, it sounds like most of the records from that period. It would not have been one of these records where you go, wow, this record sounds terrible. It sounds like it did in '84. I mean, being a kid at that time who was listening to a lot of records with his sister at that time, so this didn't sound, very odd. It didn't sound out of place at all. I agree maybe with Lonnie that as time has gone, maybe it has aged differently for some people, but I think overall Paul did a pretty good job. I thought that it for the time period it kept them relevant. It kept them in the game, so to speak, right? So I gave it a 3. The cohesiveness, I have to agree with Lonnie. Even if you don't like the record, from song to song to song, it sounds very cohesive. The production is very similar. It's very, it flows from song to song, whether you like the songs or not. It has a good flow to it. So I gave it a 3 as well. The one thing I find absolutely fascinating that Julian just brought up was the fact that they brought in Alan there to do the drums because of the lack of hi-hat. That's the one thing I've always noticed about Eric Carr when you watch him, even live. He has a tendency to go to his floor tom or a tom instead of a hi-hat. Well, in parts where normally a drummer would use a hi-hat. It's really fascinating when you think about it from the drumming end of that he did that. So maybe that was a problem he had throughout his whole career, because even in that video, if you watch him in Germany for the Crazy Nights Monsters of the Rock tour that they did there, if you watch him when they take the camera view from behind him, he's always on a tom hitting it as you would a hi-hat. I was always wondering, why is he doing that all the time, But maybe that was just a habit of his that he did. The album cover, again, when I was young and I first saw it, I didn't think anything bad or anything great of it. It was just an album cover at the time for me when I was younger. Now looking back to it, it sort of makes me smile because I do remember the time period of the really bad spandex. There was more than a few guys in my apartment building at the time who had those kind of animal print, pants on at that time. And I was always laughing when you see them because they used to be like really tight on some of these guys who should have no business wearing them, and it was like, wow, but it was part of the time, looking at it now, it's not an impressive cover by any stretch of the imagination. So I gave it a 2 as well for that.
Yeah, just going back to the hi-hat, Eric was very much aware of his issue with the hi-hat because he did a cartoon at the beginning of the Lick It Up sessions. He actually and this is hanging in one of the hard rocks now. I've got a scan of it, but I don't have any way of showing it. It says, first day of recording, they've got a little bee buzzing around that looks like Vinny. And Michael James Jackson behind the console with a voice bubble saying, more hi-hat. So he was definitely aware of this. I'm not a drummer, so Eric Carr was a singing drummer. In the club days, he was singing a shit ton of lead, with Flasher, with Mother Nature Father Time, with Creation. So did him having to focus on beat while singing keep him from being able to do some of the accents with... I just don't know as a drummer.
It's possible.
And someone asked, what a possible explanation might be around that. Ken, let's get to you before I go off on so many tangents and bore everyone to death.
And one thing really quickly, Ken, before you start about the hi-hat, that's also probably the reason why he started playing with the hi-hat on the other side where the ride is too, because maybe he just found it more comfortable with that side than crossing over and singing. Maybe he found it easier this way. That's a possible thing too. Sorry, Ken, go ahead.
No, that's all right. So just before I start, I was looking at the book yesterday or day before, the Kiss Behind Them makeup or Mask
The
or whatever.
Mask.
Mask.
Master.
And I was looking at Paul Stanley's view and Gene Simmons' views on this album. They rated it from 2 to a 5. They both rated Lick It Up. Well, no, Paul rated Lick It Up as 4 out of 5 stars. Gene rated Lick It Up 2 out of 5, and they both rated them the exact same for Animalize. Paul was a 4 out of 5, and Gene 2 out of 5, and they both said that they thought Animalize was a better album than Lick It Up. I just I just shook my head like, you're kidding me, right? And I don't understand why, but maybe because of Vinnie Vincent left a sour taste in their mouth, and how much he influenced the album of Lick It Up. But anyway,
they stole his song for the title. I mean, come on, Animalize.
Yeah.
Gene was on the phone with him all the time, begging for him to come back. And Gene's songs say why. Sorry, get back to it, Ken.
No, that's all right. All right. So for production, I thought this is Paul Stanley's best production of all his producing efforts. I don't rate it a 5. I give it a 3. Middle of the road. But I thought it was pretty decent productions. It's pretty good sounding record. Cohesiveness, I gave it a 3. Middle of the road too on that. The cover art, back then I probably thought it was kind of cool, but nowadays I thought I think what they did for that cover art, I think Paul Stanley was getting carpet samples that day in his Malibu home, and they threw these overlapping carpets out there. He goes, the cheetah one, pick that one, and that's the one he chose. And they just took a picture of that. So.
And then he cut him up in squares and sold them.
Later on, after he's selling his house, they cut that one up and we're selling the cheetah carpets to everybody.
But didn't Dennis Wallach talk about that cover, saying that they were the ones who kind of did the stuff, that the band wasn't much input on that?
I'm just making up a story. It's not true. Okay. What I'm saying, Mark.
Yeah, go listen to Claudio Bergaman's Dennis Wallach podcast and see what Dennis has to say about this album. Because while I imagine Paul Stanley flipping through Circus and Hit Parader and seeing what people are wearing and coming up with that, there's probably, Dennis will tell you the truth.
Yeah.
We'll make up stories.
As he remembers it, yeah.
Yeah, Mark, that's just me trying to be funny about the carpet. Anyway, about the cover. Anyway, maybe not too funny. But singles selection for me, I thought, we talking about that too?
No,
well, not next.
No. We're going to go into singles next, but
I got way far ahead, I guess. So.
Yeah. Settle down, Ken. Settle down. We're going to do this, but just before we move on to the singles, this album cover versus, say, The Elder, Revenge, and Psycho Circus, which all don't feature band shots as well. Where does it fit? Lonnie, is this better than those, or is there a non-band shot
one better
that you think's better than Animalize? Better or worse?
I think The Elder is worse. I think Psycho Circus is worse. But I'm partial to Revenge. I'll say Revenge is better than this, though.
Mark?
Yeah, I think Revenge is probably the best of the non-band people on the front covers.
Ken?
The best of the non-makeup, or just
The Elder?
I do like The Elder. No, I don't. I don't like The Elder.
The jokester, Ken. Ken is the jokester today. Yeah, okay.
No, I like Lick It Up. I think that's just because I think it made sense to me.
No, but then the
ones there's a band there. I like Destroyer.
Without the band. Okay, you're talking about without the. Okay.
Pay attention, Ken.
Shoot, that's hard. I'll go with The Elder.
Yeah.
All right, Daniel.
I have to put Revenge at the number 1 spot, but then I'd put Animalize in the 2nd spot.
Yeah, I've never liked Revenge as a cover. Sorry, I'd actually put Psycho higher than Revenge.
Cool.
but none of it matters. Can't change any of this shit. So I just wish this had a Japanese overlay that actually looked decent. But then again, none of the shots with the band look that good, do they? Look at the tour book, right, Ken? And Ken, thank you for wearing your new hat. You did wear your new hat this week, so
I was going to wear my hat, but yeah, I do have my.
Well, you remembered.
Still have my tour book from the concert.
That is the same as the press photo, isn't it?
I think it's so unfortunate that Bruce isn't in that picture because the three guys, they look awesome, but Mark St. John looks so out of whack there.
That is just, that is like Mad Max meets into the fire.
There's nothing wrong with Mad Max.
Some of the
Mad Max is cool.
Let's talk about singles. And I think that was August 84 where they shot the video. Maybe the end of July. Yeah, I don't know a date on that. But Lonnie, let's talk about the singles. What do you think of the single picks, which are, of course, in the U.S.? Heaven's on Fire first, followed by Thrills in the Night. And very few people would have seen the Thrills in the Night single.
I think I gave the singles a 3. And maybe I could have given the singles a little bit higher because I think that, Heaven's on Fire is the obvious single. It's clearly the best song on the album. Thrills in the Night is fine. But I don't know I know Julian is not a fan of Thrills in the Night. But I think that, what else are you going to choose on here to be a single, except maybe I've Had Enough Into the Fire, which I don't know.
Bitch Burned, man. Come on.
Right. But I've Had Enough Into the Fire would have been good. I don't know how well it would have been on radio because I've Had Enough Into the Fire is it's very heavy and very in your face. I don't know how well it would have done on radio. And where Thrills in the Night is a little more catchy and a little more poppy, and I can see why they chose that to be the other single. I gave the singles 3 out of 5 just because Heaven's on Fire is the obvious first single on the album. And I get why they chose Thrills in the Night.
All right, I was going to monologue for 5 minutes, but Lonnie summed it up. What else was there to choose other than Thrills in the Night? So, exactly what Lonnie said. Bingo. Ken, singles for you.
The single selection I thought were, what I said. What did I say? I gave it a low 2. That can't be right.
A 2?
No.
No, you actually gave the singles 5.
Wow.
So
that's more like it, Ken.
You think it is perfect.
I think it's wrong. Yeah, I thought it was perfect for the single selection. What am I looking at? Oh, no.
Wow. Look at the wrong album when he did.
I'm looking at the wrong... I'm looking at an image from my older one. From a different album.
Wow.
Just make it up as you go along.
I'll get it back. Anyway, I said, that's not right. It's not a 2. A 5 because I think those were the obvious choices. Heaven's on Fire obviously is the best technically song on the record as far as something to get radio airplay. And the second one would be Thrills in the Night, which I think is a really great song. So I think I gave it a 5 because there's no other choice other than those 2.
All right, Mark, put on your A&R hat, single choice.
I gave it a 4 out of 5. The singles. I mean, obviously, Heaven's on Fire is near perfect in my opinion as far as a single, and probably the best song on the album. But like everybody said, really, if you go through the rest of the songs on there, the Thrills in the Night is the best one to pick as another single. It's melodic. It has a decent melody. It doesn't have any lyrics that could be deemed as inappropriate on there. So, those are the kind of things that, people in radio and stuff like that kind of looked at and thought about when releasing a song. And I think that, it could have been more, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. It could have been better received maybe if they had a little bit more push on it. But at that time, there were so many bands that were putting out fantastic albums and fantastic singles at the time. So Kiss had a hell of a time, I think, keeping up with some of them. They were very lucky, I think, with Heaven's on Fire. It came out at a good time. I think the video helped them a lot with that. And unfortunately, I think that there was a video made for this, but one that was maybe never seen or very rarely seen. So that didn't help it either.
Thrills in the Night. Yeah, they started filming concept parts in an office. You see some pictures from the rock mags at the time of Eric Carr sitting behind a desk with a cigar, wearing a suit, and then the whole group made up in office attire. So they gave up on that concept. And it's kind of funny in one way that Paul had been saying, well, we don't do videos like that because we're all about performance and people want to see us, being a band, which is kind of what they did with the MTV stuff. But I think there may have also been costs involved because they were broke at this time. Daniel, singles.
I'm sorry, I almost knocked myself out with a burp. Because I ate fermented Baltic herring before this. You know what that is?
Oh, that's good. Yes.
Yeah, herring's awesome.
That's awesome, but
not sure about the fermented part.
Yeah, fermented fish is great, but if you go on YouTube and look at Americans opening like a can of fermented Baltic herring, they all puke. I can drink that stuff because I'm a Viking. Okay, but other than that, let's go for the single. Well, Heavens on Fire was the obvious choice, of course. Perfect lead-off single. And then a second single from Kiss. It really doesn't matter what you pick. It's only mattered once in the 80s. And that was when they picked Forever. And that was probably... Was that the third single? Rise to It, Hide Your Heart, and then Forever. But other than that, Unmasked didn't do much. The Elder, no one cared about. I Love It Loud from Creatures of the Night. Lick It Up, no one cared about. All Hell's Breaking Loose. Tears Are Falling was a great pick. They didn't care about Who Wants to Be Lonely All Night. Crazy, Crazy Nights. And then no one saw the rest. So the first single is really, really important, that you pick a single that can carry the album and be played. And so they picked the perfect number one. I would have liked them to pick something a bit harder or heavier as a second single, because I think at this point of time the ballad stuff hadn't really made it onto the MTV channels. That was a bit later on, when you had the big ballad. So I would have liked them I would have liked them doing something like I've Had Nothing to the Fire. No, but Thrills in the Night is sort of the softest song, so to speak, I would say. It's the softest song. This is actually a stretch when Kiss didn't do classic ballads. No ballad on Lick It Up, no ballad on Animalize, no ballad on Asylum. Mm-hmm. But it's the closest thing to it. I would have liked to seen them doing I've Had Nothing to the Fire or Under the Gun, actually, and played a bit of a heavier card, but it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have done anything but the lead-off single is the perfect one, and it sounds great to this day. I mean, I have students coming up to me and they like this song, and they don't even know it's from '84. They think it's kind of a new song, so they did something right with the production on that song.
Definitive Kiss classic from the Unmasked era. Crispiness, While the City Sleeps. That was indeed a single in Spain.
What?
Wow. Really?
One of the few markets.
The worst song on the album.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on into song by song. And when we get to the end of this, don't forget to remind me to do the actual rankings in order of least popular to most popular, because we're just going to go through it by track order. Daniel and Lonnie have actually slayed the single collection or discussion with just common sense. Thank you, guys. Now it's all about emotions and how we actually think of these songs as we get started. So, Ken, I'm going to start with you because you're a hater today. You are not a big fan of the opening track, I've Had Enough, Into the Fire. Please defend your decision.
I gave it a good enough score.
21 out of 60.
Are you looking at the right sheet, Ken?
I am this time. I dug it up.
All right, tell us about the opening track, Ken.
Well, first of all, I'll just say I said the production was lower. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on my production, and that was a real big difference. And the cover art, I gave it a 2 out of 5. So anyway, okay, going into I've had enough. The lyrics, I gave it a 3 out of 5. That's not bad. Are they the greatest lyrics I've ever heard? Are they Rush lyrics? No. I think Mark would, agree with that.
Yes.
Melody, I gave it a 4. That's pretty darn good. 4 out of 5. I think that's a above average rating.
Yeah, great.
So, and my taste, I gave it a 3. So how can that be so low? How are you saying that I have a low score? I don't understand.
Julian is looking at the wrong sheet.
Julian's math is off there a bit.
Julian math.
I don't know what he's looking at, because the highest you can score is what?
30.
Yeah, I got so I give it 21 out of 30, which is
21 out of 30. Yeah, it's still the lowest of the rankings. So let's move on, since we're going to move up a little bit.
Song,
Lonnie gave it 24 out of 30. Lonnie?
I gave it 24 out of 30. I think I gave the lyrics a 4. I think the lyrics are good. They're not perfect, but they're darn good. And the melody, I like the melody. I like how I commented a little bit ago that, if it wasn't Thrills of the Night, maybe it's I've Had Enough. I like how it's so in your face. It's a great, riff to start off the album with. And taste, I gave it a 3. I like the song, so I give it 24 out of 30. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I gave it 24 out of 30 as well. I think it's a great opening track. It hits all kind of the accent points. There's a really good bass line in this one. But I think this song illustrates Mark St. John's guitar playing the best on this album. Straight out of the hat. It's all there. And I posted some of the rough tracks for this. I think this was one, but there's some of the noodly guitar parts actually work nicely with that, especially at the end when Eric just tick, 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 and Mark comes in with that nice little noodly ending pattern. It's really nice and tasty guitar playing. Same at the beginning of the song. So 24 out of 30. It's a good song, but it's not the best one on the album. So Mark, you're 28 out of 30.
Actually, I thought I did the same. I gave it a 4 for the lyrics. I gave it a 4 for melody, and I gave it 3 for taste. I thought pretty much.
I had that backwards. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you're the same.
Yeah. So I think pretty much the same thing that you guys said. Lyrics. I think the lyrics are well suited to the music. And I think at this time the lyrics, they were on point for this kind of stuff, like this sort of hard rocking, introductory song. I think that it was really well done. And I have to agree 100% with Julian. I think that this song definitely shows Mark St. John in a good light as far as his lead play. Very good stuff in there. How much, you always see those stories about Paul and them saying that they had to rein him in a bit or tell him not to do so much this and that. How much impact they actually did as far as that, who knows? But overall, I still think that he did a great solo on this, and it turned out really well.
Yeah, and if anyone didn't see Craig's comments about the soundboard of Kobo that's recently started circulating, it is absolutely brilliant. So track it down.
I just gotta say, I'm curious to Julian's math, how he's doing his math, because I said that's wrong. Anyway, it's
not the first time.
Well, remember, it's you add the lyrics and the melody and multiply it by taste, and it's in a spreadsheet. So
I love that template you provided, Ken. That
Did
template
it work?
we should all. Yeah, it worked just
Okay, great.
perfectly. So I will be using that one always.
Well, okay. Yeah. $5.
All right, Daniel.
Thank you.
Daniel, you gave this song perfect marks, 30 points.
Yeah. If you look at the records from this time period, Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up, Animalize, and Asylum, the first song on all those albums, that's a perfect opener. So, and this is one of them. you talked about Mark St. John's playing on this song being, pretty cool. If we go into detail, I really like how the way the song starts with that dive bomb. Mark St. John does sort of a dive bomb, and then some noodling stuff. Such a cool way to start the record, so you really get your hopes up. I have to agree with what Mark said later on the record. He kind of struggles with finding some sort of melody in the solos, but on this song, I think this is the best song for Mark St. John, much like Julian said, and I think Eric Carr is a big part of making this song so great. If you listen to his play from the beginning, bam, that dynamic beginning, and then he plays 16th notes on the hi-hat, a lot of notes on the hi-hat. So I think it's a really cool song, both for Eric Carr and Mark St. John. So the two new members really provide on this album, on this song, and I always enjoyed this one, even when I was a kid. Back then, Lonnie might not remember this, but we had like tape cassette players. Lonnie was in his crib sucking
I mentioned my
thumb. Yeah, but you were in your crib sucking a thumb. But
Wow.
we were listening to the first two songs on Animalize over and over again, and I remember rewinding and then listening. I've had enough into the fire, Heavens on Fire, and then rewinding the cassette once again. So such a cool song, such a perfect opener, and Paul really nailed the openers from Creatures of the Night up until Asylum. So those openers are some of my absolute favorite songs.
All right. Well, we kind of got to go to Lonnie for a response to that, and also to get us started on Heavens on Fire, because our scoring's the same. Three of us, starting with Lonnie, have Heavens on Fire on 27 out of 30. So damn near perfect song. Lonnie.
Yeah, I gave Heavens on Fire a super high score of 27 out of 30. I said that the lyrics are a 5. I think the lyrics are perfect on the song. It's really, really good. I said that melody is a 4. I really like it. And taste is a 3. 27 out of 30 points. Pretty darn good. It's a classic Kiss song. There's no way around it.
That sounds cool.
Was really excited when they started playing it again in 2000 on the farewell tour, and then it was ignored for a while, but it got some resurgence at the end, thankfully, that it definitely deserved. And it's a crowd pleaser. It was a big hit for him. People know it. Even just a casual person going to the Kiss concert that doesn't know a whole lot of Kiss songs, they know Heaven's on Fire. So I was really glad that it got brought back for the end, because it is a great song. I gave it 27 out of 30 points. Pretty darn good.
Yeah, I was 27 as well. It's a really cool song. I love the vocal warm up thing. It's like little moments like that, which aren't kind of planned, or at least that's the story. And it sounds pretty good, because you had the same thing on the following album, which makes me think that maybe it was a little bit. We got to have something similar, for the King of the Mountain drum warm up on the next album.
Yeah.
You've got the vocal warm up here, but they're nice little elements that add something to the song. The simplicity of the solo is fantastic, because it fits perfectly, just like Lick It Up had been on the studio version. It was simple, and that, I think, may be Paul playing that. So certainly Mr. Alan Holdsworth, guitar school, Mark St. John, would go off track, and he loved his whammy. I don't see him being able to play something as simple as the Heavens on Fire without transposing it into a different key signature and going well off the reservation. Keep it simple. The song speaks for itself. 27 out of 30. Mark, 27 out of 30.
Yeah, I totally agree with pretty much everybody's assessment of it here. I think lyrically it's a 5 for me. Again, the time period is everything with this record. I mean, I think that the lyrics fit with a lot of the style of the writings that was going on at that time period. And I think Paul was really was really, really good at this time, I think, with lyrics. I mean, there's some periods of Kiss's history where he's, suspect in some of his lyrics, but this is good. This period is really good for Paul, I think. Musically, I gave it a 4. It's simple, to the point. Like you said, the guitar solo is very simplistic but memorable. I just finished watching a great video about with actually Mick Mars. He was on a live stream last night talking about amplifiers and stuff like that throughout his career, and they were asking him about guitar solos, and he said the same thing. He goes, when you write a guitar solo, if the audience can sing it, then it's a good guitar solo. So, and that's exactly I think the thinking that was going on here. I mean, it's hard to sing some of Mark St. John's solos later in the album, but this stuff, it's you can easily get through the melody and sing through it. And taste, I gave it a 3, so it's a 27 for sure for me on this song.
Now, my math says that Ken gave this 24 points. Does
You're
your math
right.
and my math add up?
Yes.
Are we in agreement, Ken? All right. Well,
Yeah.
you're
Now that I have the
again
right,
at the bottom of the
spreadsheet.
pile. You like this the least of us. Please justify yourself. But
Yeah,
24
but
it's a pretty good score.
It's my highest ranking of all the songs on this record. Obviously, the lyrics, I think, it's just middle lyrics. It's nothing crazy great about them or bad. It's middle of the road for me. It has a 3 out of 5. Melody is the thing for this song. That's why it was so good. So it was a 5 out of 5 for me on the melody. Great melody. And my taste is 3. 1 out of 3. It's 3 is the top. So I think the only really ding I give it is that the lyrics. Otherwise, it's a great song. 24 is pretty darn good, I think.
Yep. From Ken on a Paul Stanley song, 24 is
Paul Stanley
it's
song, yeah.
pretty much perfection. Daniel, once again, has this. I mean, he's just going to be our SpongeBob SquarePants, Mr. Rainbow today. 30 points, perfection. But I think that's emotional.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what it is, but I think this is a perfect song. And the European perspective on this one is a bit different than I think the North American perspective is, because this was such a huge hit over here. I mean, this is probably the most, well, maybe I Was Made is a bit more known, but I think this is the second most known song in my country, at least. And I remember being in school. I was a few years older than Lonnie, but I wasn't that old. And we have this contest. You could bring a song to school, and the class voted on the best song. And my song won. I think this was in 85, because me and my friend fought over who would bring Heavens on Fire. He had to pick Tears Are Falling, so it must have been 85.
Yeah.
So I Was Made, Heavens on Fire, ended up in first position, and Tears Are Falling actually ended up in second position. And that tells you a little bit how popular Kiss was, because it was just a random class. We were like 30 kids in a class, and everyone got a vote, and Heavens on Fire ended up as number 1, Tears Are Falling as number 2. So Kiss was really, really popular in 84, 85 over here. And I just read the first line that Paul said about the song in this book, Kiss Behind the Mask, and it says, I was striving for simplicity. Yeah. So I think a lot of guitar players started off to Heavens on Fire. I think it was like a gateway song into guitar playing. But I've never heard anyone, any band, anywhere, anyhow, being able to making this song sounding as good as it does on Animalize. And it's all about the vocals. No one can top the Paul Stanley vocals on Heavens on Fire. It's just impossible. People have tried, but this is the best version ever. So this is just a perfect song, and I'll love it to this day.
I'm smiling right now. It's nice, because that's what
Let's
Paul
go to-
Stanley was. That's
Yeah.
what Paul Stanley was back then. Just fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, the wheels on the shopping cart have turned around all the way to the plunk one. Burn, bitch, burn. I guess we got to start with Mr. Red Kool-Aid himself, Ken, on this one. Ken,
Yeah, I didn't give it a highest score or anything like that. You know, I
you gave it the highest score on this panel.
Okay, well, realistic. That's kind of
Shocking.
Funny. But yeah, I mean,
Shocker.
Again, lyrics. I kind of like the lyrics because you can't forget them. I mean, they're so crazy. What Gene says in this song. Some of those things, you know, the put my log in your fireplace kind of thing is you're never going to forget that, right? So in a way, it's clever. He could have put something else in there, and we wouldn't even remember what the lyrics were to the song. But yeah, so I still gave it a 3 out of 5 for lyrics on that one. Melody, yeah, it could be better. It's probably because of the. You know, I have a 3 out of 5 on that because the actual melody or chorus part of it is just "burn, bitch, burn" over and over with the you know, going back. So you know, I think he was calling owls or something like that for mating or something like that. Maybe that's what the song's about. Anyway. My taste is on S3 because I love the riff. I think the riff is the best part of the song. Sure. I just like the song overall a real lot, you know, on this album. And so I don't think it's a bad song at all. So I, you know, rounded up. It went to 18 points for me.
18 points?
Wow.
That's low for a Gene song.
Lonnie, don't get too excited about that.
I hope
we're not far behind. Well,
just wait till you see the rest of my rankings.
Yeah, I gave this 12 out of 30, and you know, lyrics wise, I call it 50-50. There are some decent lyrics in this song, but it's in need of a song doctor, something serious. If they had gotten through to Holly Knight and helped Gene out with some of these things, it could be much better because musically, it's not bad. For me, musically, it's actually, again, you've played the riff, Daniel, so you know it's undercooked in terms of its arrangement, but there's also some good lead work on this song. Which make it much more enjoyable on these, you know, the listens I've had this week to prepare for this. It's in my it's all right category. I don't hate it. I don't gush over it. Lonnie, you're on 12 out of 30 for it as well. So why?
12.
I don't think I had 12.
I have to remember.
Get out the right.
You gave it 4.
I gave it 4 points.
Sorry, just slightly off.
Wait a minute here.
I gave it 4 points. Like 12. No,
Jeez.
I gave it 4. Lyrics, I gave it a 2. It's below average. If it's below average lyrics, so I'm not going to give it a 3 out of 5.
Agreed.
So I can't give it a 3 because 3 would be that the lyrics are above average and the lyrics are not. So it's a 2. And
they're not endearing lyrics to you, I guess.
No, they're not. So, and melody, it doesn't. I know, you know, you guys are praising the melody. It doesn't do anything for me. It's not above average either. So I gave that a 2 also. And then taste, I gave it a 1 because I don't really care for the song, so it gets a 4.
Wow. Jeez.
Lonnie gave it the finger 1.
It's not very good. Right. The lyrics are below average. Melody's below average. Well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Cow.
We will get Lonnie to come out of his shell and really tell us what he thinks. All right. Daniel gave it 12. I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah, I thought 12 is a bit low because I really like the way it sounds, the song, but the lyrics are so bad. And I remember when I played this cassette back in the middle 80s, I went up to my mom and, you know, English is my second language, so I didn't really understand what they sang about. So I went up to her, and I remember showing her this song, and asking, what does the title mean? Burn,
no.
bitch, burn. And I saw by the way she looked that she lied to me, because she said it means burn, witch, burn, which I think was the original title of the song, actually. I've heard that they wanted to do that
Probably
one,
would have been better.
but later on I understood what a bitch was. But back then I didn't understand anything. So now it's a really cool riff. I've seen what's the name of that wrestler playing Kiss songs? Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
He's played it live. It sounds kind of cool. But the lyrics are so bad. It's the mind boggles when you think about what Vinnie Vincent could have done with this song. If Gene could have worked a little bit with Vinnie Vincent on this one, it could have been a great Gene song and a perfect third song on the album. Now it's I think it's a bit above average. I like it. It's my favorite Gene song on the album.
Yep. Where's Strago? Apparently knew what misogyny meant when he was 14. I sure as shit didn't, but I was singing along to Shake Me and other songs. It's only evolved later. Mark, you ranked this the lowest out of all of us.
Yes. I gave it a whopping 3.
Lower?
Yes.
Lower than last.
Let's put it this way: we always said that Kiss was never known for their lyrics, and and it's not about intelligent lyrics. It's just about fun and stuff like that. But I gotta say, these lyrics are just absolute drivel, it's absolute crap. It's just like he picked out random lines out of his lyric book and just attached them, and that's it. Now, one of the main things that I do when I pick songs now and or when I rank these songs is there's one important factor for me on this. Yes, we can see they're shitty. The one thing that I can the one thing I always think about is when I listen to a record, if I can remember the song in detail, then it's a good song. And this song has always been one of those songs where, beside the opening riff, I couldn't probably tell you half the other parts of the song. Like, if they don't stick in my head, then they're not a good song. And this is one of the great examples of it. And I gave this a song a 2. I mean, it could have easily been a 1, but I gave it a 2 because I think that the opening riff is good in this song, right? And then I gave it a 1 as taste. I really don't care for this song, to be quite honest. So there's your 3 right there. But I mean, that's an important factor to me, at least. I listened to this song quite a bit. I pulled out my vinyl. I listened to it downstairs. I had the CD in the car just to make sure I gave it a really fair listen to this record. And a lot of the Gene songs I just don't find memorable at all. And that's, I think, one of the biggest problems of it.
I think he's overcompensating in 1984. Where's Drago? Back to you. You're putting up a lot of great comments about this. I think Gene not knowing who the hell he was outside of makeup makes him overcompensate for that and try and be that big Dr. Love type character. So, coming out with all this outrage out of his lyrics blender, I think it's just him. What am I? I'm supposed to be Gene Simmons, the demon, but it's a bit ludicrous looking back at it. And it was probably ludicrous when we were 14, but come on. Let's move on to Get All You Can Take. What fucking difference does it make? This actually has some of my favorite guitar work on it from Mark St. John, and you can only really hear it on the rough mix. Again, go to the thread on the FAQ for it, because we were talking about Mark and his whammy bar. He's doing dive-ons, pull-ups at the end of that got completely cut out of the mix. It's just, there's some great guitar playing that's completely alien to Kiss's style. Vinny wasn't playing anything like that either. I mean, it's discordant, it's weird. So it got 21 points out of me. It's a good song, but it's missing something. I love the music to this track. I really enjoyed going back to that rough mix and preparing that for the forum. Whose score am I going to get wrong next? Well, it's this one is there's 2 groups. There's the people who scored at 21 and the people who scored at 12. So, Ken, you also give Get All You Can Take 21 points. So
yeah, I think it's one of the better songs on the record, definitely. lyrics are I like the message in the lyrics. It's probably 4 out of 5 for me on that. Melody's pretty darn good. 3 out of 5. And my taste, I mean, I think it's great. So it's 3 out of 3 for me on that one. I've always liked the song. I think I think it is kind of catchy. I like the kind of gang vocals in it and that sort of thing. And the guitar, like you said, the guitar sounds great. It's a cool riff going on in there. Just really, really, really good. So yeah, 21 for me.
Yep, Paul Stanley at his apartment with Mitch Weissman and Gene on the phone writing that one, and they couldn't come up with anything to replace Get All. What fucking difference does it make? They tried. They were thinking about it.
Yeah.
Lonnie, I think you gave it 12 points.
I'm in the 12 camp on this one. It's okay. I gave the lyrics. I gave it a 3. They're above average lyrics. I mean, they're not stellar lyrics, but they're above average. They're fine. And the melody, I gave it a 3 too, because I don't think I appreciated as much as Julian was talking about how what he liked about it, but it's above average. It's okay. And as far as taste goes, I just gave it a 2. It's just kind of an okay song for me. Nothing really stands out to me about it, but it's better than some of the other material on the album. So it's above average, but kind of at average at the same time. It's a little forgettable. It's not it's not a song I really go and seek out, but it's not a song that I really dislike either.
Mark.
Yeah, I have the same score, and I think a lot of it is the same to what Lonnie said. Lyrically, it's okay. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed in one sense that they kept that line and I have no problem with cursing in lyrics. I mean, a lot of the bands that I love do it all the time. Some bands more than others. I mean, Suicidal Tendencies, don't get me started with them, how much they curse in their songs. But I think that if they maybe would have changed up that lyric a bit, I think maybe it could have been potential for something else. Like maybe if they would have did a little bit stronger music to it, it could have been a possible single. But you can't release a song with "fuck" in the lyrics. That just wouldn't go on there, especially in that time period. But the thing is, I think overall it's all right. Musically, it's okay. It's middle of the road too. I think the opening riff is probably the most memorable riff in the song in general. The rest of it is pretty standard, sort of fare. Not the worst thing I've heard, but not the best. So I gave it the same exact score as Lonnie, 3, and 2.
Daniel.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that this song might be most known for that swearing word.
Yeah.
That's just because in America people seem to, I don't know, fake that people don't swear. It's such a big thing over there. Over here it isn't. People kill each other in the streets of New York, but if you say fuck on BBC, it's the worst thing ever. I can't get that. That's so okay. Go to the bank and get a new account here. You get a shotgun, but you can't say fuck on the news. So that's just silly to me. We don't care about that kind of stuff over here. People swear. That's just the thing it is. But the song itself, I think for me it's the worst Paul song on the album, but it's not bad. It's a middle of the road song, and one of the listeners said it reminds me of Keep Me Coming. Yeah, that pull-off thing he does in the riff is very similar to Keep Me Coming. So I agree with that guy. And Keep Me Coming is probably my least favorite song on Creatures of the Paul songs. So, middle of the road, nothing special. And I don't care if you say fuck. Doesn't matter to me.
I just a quick comment on the swearing part. I think that's the first album for that they swore on. I don't remember it on any of their earlier albums. I could be wrong.
I guess it was kind of edgy, maybe in America to say something like that.
Other bands were doing it. I mean, look at
Exactly.
Motley. Shout at the devil. 10 Seconds to Love. You want to talk about misogyny? Yeah, in rock and roll, there's a poster child for it. Knock 'em Dead Kid, Bitch. Fuck. Again, the PMRC's evolving, and Kiss
Shortly
comes
after
off
that,
Creatures where they, what was Stage Raps, in 83, the year prior,
there's a lot of
in
that.
83, 84. Where were they? They were fighting for relevance and to stay up with the pack. So the wheels on the cart have gone around again to the bum wheel, and Kathunk, we're back on another Gene song. Lonely is the Hunter. And I just want to go, I fucking hate this bitch of a song.
Wow.
I
Wow.
cannot
Tell us how you
stand
really feel.
beep. Yeah.
This song is abject
Swearing in the loud.
garbage. This is Gene at his lowest low. I have nothing. It has no redeeming qualities. It is 1, 1, 1. And they made it a B-side to Heaven's on Fire. Go figure. I'm sorry for my naughty words. Let's move on to someone far more sensible who gave it 3 points. Mark.
Yes, I gave it 3, and
3
not
points?
not the bottom like Julian.
Come on.
I did give it 1 extra point in the lyric department, a 2, because it seems like there was maybe a little bit of thought and maybe a sort of a maybe he tried to have some sort of a concept in it, which is shocking at this point for Gene, because I think really it's just with him, it's just word salad, just like grab anything from here and there and just make a lyric out of it. So, but musically, this song is really bad. I don't like this song. This does not have any memorable riffs in this song at all. I don't like this song at all. I mean, this is one of the rare times I think where I just don't bother with this song. I just skip it, just take the needle off, and that's it. I mean, when in the car, if I'm driving, I don't care. I'll just let it play through. But I don't find this song good at all. I mean, I know I'm really harsh on Gene's songs a lot of the time, but I mean, this song is really weak. I mean, and the fact that he argued for associate producer credit on this album or executive producer, it boggles the mind that he got it with some of the stuff that he put on this album.
Yeah, clearly Paul Stanley isn't the producer that he thought he was, because no real producer would allow this shit sandwich to be put on an album. That said, I'm also the person who remastered the demo for that thread on the FAQ to make it sound a little better today. I did indeed, and I picked this one. Daniel, you also don't care much for this song, do you? Sorry to interrupt your snack. You eating more herring? Fermented means half digested.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's half digested, It's been in a can for a year. Smells very interesting when you open the can.
Pairs well with kimchi.
I guess you guys over there don't eat fermented stuff.
My mom does.
Yeah, McDonald's. That's for me.
Yeah, McDonald's. That's even worse.
I don't eat that either.
McDonald's. Yeah.
Fermented shake.
Yeah. Well,
all right, Daniel.
You have to.
Lonely is the Hunter.
Lonely is the Hunter. I gave it a 3. 2 for melody. I actually kind of like the rest of the songs on the album that Gene has done. No one gets more than 3 points from me. So the rest is shit sandwiches all the way. But I still enjoy Gene's voice and Gene's vocals. So I like the way he sings the stuff. Lonely is the Hunter, While the City Sleeps, and Murder in High Heels. I enjoy his vocals. Just because it's middle 80s Gene, that's enjoyable. But lyric-wise, it's almost like he's just picking words and throwing them in. And taste, I would say, it feels unfinished. Once again, maybe Vinny could have saved Gene, but unfortunately he wasn't around. So this song gets 3 points from me.
This was probably the song that made Vinny not come back.
Probably.
Lonnie, you gave it 8 points.
I gave it 8. I guess gave it just kind of straight down the road. 2 for the lyrics, not very good, not horrible for a 1, but they're a 2. a melody. It's not good. And taste, I gave it a 2 also. It's just okay. I probably could have given the taste a 1. I mean, you guys were harsher on it than I was even. So
Yeah,
it's just kind of middle. It's kind of middle, less than middle of the road for me. Yeah, taste, I probably could have given a 1. I ended up giving it 8 points. I mean, I'm surprised. And maybe I gave it 8 points because I was so rough on some of the other songs. Like, oh, I can't be so brutal on every song all the way down the list. So it ended up with 8. It's so forgettable. It's not very good. It's just forgettable. It's not a song you seek out to go listen to. It's the definition of filler, and there's too much of it on this album. Almost all the Gene songs, if not all of them.
And to think he gave Thief in the Night to Wendy Williams.
Right.
Ken, are you going to have difficulty defending this song? Because you did give it, let's see, what did you give it? You gave it 10 points?
Yeah.
10 points.
I didn't give it a lot. I think probably because of the lyrics. Isn't it about Easter? Eggs in a basket? That's about Easter. Melody, I gave a 3 out of 5 because I like the riff. It's okay. I like the breakdown of the song. I think that's cool. And what really saves the song for me is Bruce Kulick's guitar solo on this one, which is his first one that he's done for Kiss. And I think it's great guitar solo he does on it. So from that standpoint, give it a 10. I mean, I give it taste 2 out of 5. I think just the flow of it's kind of, a weird kind of riff. I mean, I kind of like the riff, and then there's parts about it I don't like. But yeah, I give it a 10. I'd be interested to see. You guys have such low scores on a bunch of songs. How you could rate the Animalize album overall, high or low? I don't know. I'm curious about that.
But Mark, you as a musician, isn't this a different time signature on this song? It seems like it's a different time signature, and that makes it kind of groove at times. I'll give Ken that.
Yeah, it's like it has a swing meter almost.
Yeah.
So like Paralyzed, he does shift into that mode sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a different sort of swagger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed.
Stagger dance. All right, let's move on to the very best song on the album, in my opinion. Under the Gun, 30 out of 30. My
really
cool
lyrics, best song on the album. Melody, best song on the album. Taste,
doing 69
best song on the album. I love Under the Gun. I think it's one of the highlights of the 1980s Unmasked catalog. It absolutely cranks in concert during the period that they did it too, especially once Bruce made it his own first day of the Animalize tour. So, fantastic song. Lonnie.
I ranked it higher than some songs on the album, but I didn't give it as much love as Julian. Under the Gun, lyrics, I gave it a 3. They're better. They're better than some of the other stuff that we've had so far. So they're not great, but they're okay. Melody, I gave it a 3. That's probably a little rough thinking about it today. I do agree with Julian that it's fun and it's fast and it's very very 80s. With that fast guitar, it's very how I was talking when we started, but it's a definition of them really chasing the trends at the time with this really fast, really shreddy type song, and I think probably the reason I ended up giving it a 3 and not a 4 or a 5 is because that's really and for me that's not Kiss to me. That's some other bands at the time, and be true to yourself a little bit more and not so chasing what's going on. And I know that they're guilty of that as the 80s continue. So and that's probably why I ended up giving it a 3 and not higher, because to me that's just not who they are, and that's why I ended up giving the song a 2 for taste, because it's okay. but I can't give it a 3 and say that it's great. So I ended up giving it a total score of 12. Mainly because I don't like I like the song. It's a good song, but it's not a good Kiss song. It's not what I think about when I think about Kiss song. Is Under the Gun. So that's why it's a little less.
You hurt my feelings.
Sorry.
All those nice Eric Carr shout outs of fire. Mark, you agree with Alani. You gave it 12 points as well, I believe.
Yeah, I gave it exactly the same score, and probably for the same reason, actually. Lyrically, again, Paul is kind of in this zone with these kind of lyrics at this time. They're not horrendous or nothing like that, but they're certainly not his strongest type of lyrics that he's written for records. Melody, I have to agree with Lonnie. I mean, when Paul does these type of fast double bass songs, they all have a kind of sameness to them. I find like all these songs that are at this speed, they start to sound the same. They're almost interchangeable sometimes. These things, what kind of changes up when the lyrics, of course, and some of the melodies that he's singing. But when I think Paul's at his strongest when he goes a touch slower in his tempos, and where he can add a little bit more melody and more kind of memorable riffs. Because when you're doing the double kick thing, you can only do kind of so much. I feel with the riffs, you can do like you can do a lot of noting, or you can do some just really fast chord stuff. But after a while, at least for Paul, I find his music gets kind of samey when he's at this kind of tempo, when he does these kind of songs. I mean, he has songs like that, at least one song like this on every record in this time period. So I gave it a 12 as well. It's not a bad song. In taste, I put it in the middle. So it's not a terrible song, but there's a certain element of sameness in this song.
All right. Before we get to Ken, we better inject some more positivity into this song's discussion. Daniel, you gave it 24 points.
Yeah, what a hell of a song. Yeah. I like when Kiss include one fast song on the album. And this is one of his better ones from the 80s. And from what I've heard, Eric Carr started off this song. He's got a writing credit on the song, and he started off a beat, and he just told Paul, "Can you play along with this?" And then they went off from that, and then they included Desmond Child into the mix. And I like the breakdown. The bridge is really cool. Eric is really into this song. The drumming is really cool. But you have to listen to the 97 version of the album in order to hear his double kick drum, because when I bought the first time I bought the album back in the mid 80s, you couldn't really hear the drums. That it was way back. But I like how they remastered this album, because the drums are way more up front, and this is a song that benefits from that. And the vocals, of course, Paul Stanley vocals, cool as hell. Riff is really cool, fast song, and I needed one of these songs in order to show my friends that Kiss could be kind of cool and hard as well, and heavy. Heavens on Fire was a cool song, but this was sort of a heavier song, so it was cool to be able to play this to your friends and make them like, you see this, Kiss can almost sound like Metallica. And I think it worked pretty well if you watch, for example, Detroit 1990, one of those two concerts. It sounds pretty cool live as well, and Bruce nails the solo live, so I always enjoyed Under the Gun in the live sets.
Yeah. Danger, Give Me More, Under the Gun, Trial
I'm
by
Alive.
Fire,
I'm Alive.
No, or I'm Alive as well. All the high octane stuff. All right, Ken, hate away. Off you go.
I don't
6
care.
points.
Yeah, I don't care for Kiss doing this high octane, super fast. That's not Kiss. That's just not.
Get off my lawn.
70s Kiss. It's not 70s Kiss.
Get off my lawn. Yeah. Get off my turntable, basically.
Get off my lawn.
Don't you be bringing any of that fancy music around here like that.
It's another case of following the trends of the time, trying to be like these other bands that do that stuff. You're not that type of band. Just keep away from it. It doesn't work. It really doesn't work. It never has worked for Kiss to try to do that kind of stuff. So this is my lowest ranking song on the album. This was a 6.
Jeez.
I gave it a 6.
Oh, Lord.
Lyrics are 3. That's middle of the road. Melody 3. But my taste 1.
1.
You're lucky I gave it a 1. I could have given it a 0 because my taste for Kiss. I'm talking my taste for Kiss. I like other bands doing the stuff, and it sounds real. It doesn't sound forced. When Paul does these type of songs, they're forced. So again, get off my lawn. So
No, it's not get off my lawn. It's get out of my zip code. Get out of my state.
Get out. Well, get out of my country.
You're in the wrong city here. Under the gun. All right.
Anyway,
let's move on into the dirgeful Thrills in the Night, single number 2. And Ken, let's stay with you to start off. Thrills in the Night. Now you can be positive again.
Oh, good. Now I can be positive. Yeah. Thrills in the Night. I give it lyrics 4. I mean, it's one of those pretty good lyrics. He's telling the story on this one. He doesn't do it that often. But it does tell a story, and it makes sense, and I enjoy it for that attempt, having a story behind the song itself. It's just not fluff going on in it. Melody, I think it's a real good melody, though I give it a 3. I thought it could have been a little bit better, but it's not bad. My taste is good. I enjoy this type of song, so I gave it a 3. 3 out of 3 for the taste. So it's a 21 for me. I think it's a pretty good song. I mean, it's a single. It's obviously, pretty good. So it ranks up there as one of the better songs on the album.
Okay, Ken approves. Mark, you're 16, I think, on this one.
Yes, I am 16. This song is probably a little bit better than the average for Paul. I think that the song itself lyrically is pretty good. Again, I agree with Ken that it sounds like he had some sort of vision and direction in mind when he wrote these lyrics in this song. So I think that it's when he does that, it always makes it that much stronger. Vocally, I think that he sings this song pretty good. I think that the underlying guitar melodies in there and the verses are pretty cool. I like the way that it's kind of has that sort of a where the drums kind of come to a kind of stop. It's not as predictable, the verses in this song. This is the one thing that I find interesting, is that the verse is always an interesting part of this song. And the chorus is pretty memorable, I find. So lyrically, I think it's good. Musically, I think it's good. And, I put it a 2 for taste. It's not my favorite song on this album or near my favorite, but it's definitely, deserves to be a 2 for sure. It's pretty good. I think it's, again, middle of the road. I think the most interesting part of the song is the verse. And I think Paul's lyrics are really well written, and his melodies on vocals are very good.
Lonnie, you gave it 14, so you're in that same sort of ballpark as Mark.
Right there with Mark. Lyrics, I gave it a 4. I think they're good. Not perfect, but they're pretty good lyrics. I enjoyed that. And the melody is a 3. It's above average. It's it's catchy and it kind of sticks with you a little bit. But I only gave it a 3 because it's not stellar and it's not great or anything. And taste it's okay. So I'm kind of so I ended up with a 14 because I gave it a 2 for taste. It's better than some of the other tracks on the album, but it's not it's not it's not up here in my opinion, but it's better than some of the other filler stuff that's on the album. And I get why it's the second single, because it is catchy. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little harsh on this one too, but
Yes, you are.
maybe I could have gone 4 on melody, because it is better and it is catchier than some of the other ones. So, revisionist, maybe I'm more at the 16 where Mark is.
Well, you may be revisionist. I'm thinking about stealing someone else's homework right now because where's Drago again with a great comment? So thank you. Thrills in the Night is almost an 80s signature tune for Paul, almost an early Bon Jovi tune before Bon Jovi, a tune with a story, not cobbled together sayings and stupid fucking metaphors. And wow, just wow.
Yeah.
Maybe. But for me, Thrills in the Night, musically, lyrically, it's the least of Paul's songs on this album for my tastes. The music is just turgid and plodding. There's something you can hear it on the rehearsals from SIR and also in the rough mixes. Paul is second guessing himself a lot on the direction of this musically. He doesn't know if he wants to be pulling or pushing on the guitar sounds, on how it's going to come across. I think there was also another comment, Rodrigo, another really good comment about the drum pattern on the chorus taking away from the punch. I think that's a really great observation as well. So this one never did much for me. It's always like I prefer the higher octane, stupid metaphors. Sorry, again, down to taste. So I gave this 18 points. I like it well enough, but in terms of measuring it up against Heaven's on Fire, Under the Gun, I've had enough Into the Fire, and get all you can take. It falls firmly in last place for me, taste wise. Who's left on this? Oh yeah,
Me.
Daniel, 24 points. Sunshine.
Yeah. When this was released, people listened to albums. They didn't use Spotify and stuff like that. And I think you needed this song on the album after such a song as Under the Gun because of all the energy and the tempo in Under the Gun. You needed to mellow down a little bit, and Thrills in the Night becomes a perfect 1-2 punch. You have the fast Under the Gun, and after that one you have sort of a slower Thrills in the Night, and as Lonnie mentioned, is really catchy. I mean, you all remember the chorus, and as one of you said, it's almost resembles Bon Jovi before Bon Jovi, and that's a good thing, I think. And also the lyrics are great. I mean, he's trying to tell a story about I think it's a girl that lives out her dreams at night, being, going out and having some fun, but during the days she has to work as the rest of us. So I enjoy every part of this song, and I really liked how it sounded on that Animalize Live uncensored video as well. I think they pulled it off there as well, but it never became a staple in the Kiss set. It's not that good, but on this record, I think it's one of the top 4 or 5 songs. So a great song.
All right. Well, we have arrived at the final 2 songs, and they are both Broken Wheels on the shopping cart. I don't know where to start on this one. So, Daniel, you like While the City Sleeps, the A-side single in Spain. You are not a believer. Why?
No. This is... the problem with Animalize to me is that Gene Simmons has never been as lazy as this on any other album, and he blames, I went to Hollywood. He did one B movie, Runaway. Tom Selleck was the lead character, and I don't think that took all of his time. He had problems producing songs at this time. It was just he went Hollywood. He had he had a big role in a pretty small movie. That movie didn't do anything at the box office. No one cared about Runaway. So I don't know what was wrong with him. He seemed to he had lost his way of writing songs. And I don't think this is something he pulled out of the closet, so to speak, some old stuff. Maybe he could have found something, but this is just pure garbage. I mean, this is terrible. And the next song is even worse, but I gave this 3 points, and I gave it 2 for melody because I still enjoy the way he sings it, but other than that, it's crap.
Okay. Mark, you gave it 5 points.
Ooh.
I give it 6 points actually, but yeah, it's it's not exactly Gene's best again. I mean, I think this is one of those songs where I kind of did what Lonnie did, where you kind of think about it and how brutal I've been to Gene's songs, and maybe I was a little bit more merciful with this song, lyrically speaking, because I mean, it's not his worst lyric. Again, it doesn't have some of the the garbage that's notorious for his lyrics in some of the other songs. It's not the best written lyric, but I gave it a 3 for some reason. I'm trying to remember why now, thinking back to it, but I think of it just being merciful a bit. But musically, I'm with Daniel on this. I gave it a 2. I mean, I think that had more to do with the fact that I think Gene sings this pretty good. But musically, it's not that strong. I mean, I agree with Daniel. The Gene at this time was really just phoning this stuff in, I find.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that he had this lyric written out before. Maybe this is a lyric that he worked on a little bit more, because for some reason I find this lyric a little bit better than some of the other ones. Not sure why, but there's something about it I do like a little bit more. But other than that, it's just another one of these songs where I think Paul's calling him and say, "Listen, man, we need some more songs for the record," and he just gives him this stuff. So I gave it a 6. I mean, in retrospect, I probably should have gave it less, but I think I was being a little generous in this song.
Okay, well, Ken, the defender of Gene's honor, step right up and justify your 10 points.
Yes, I gave him just 10 points. Lyrics are okay. Melody is a 2 out of 5 for me. I do like. I mean, the taste, I gave it a 2 because it's not the Gene material I would like to hear. There's some parts in the song that are okay, like where they do change it up after the initial verses. They do the she's the vision in leather. That I like that. What's going on in there in the riff, but then the chorus is like it's not really a chorus. It's not. Doesn't make sense really what they did with that. It's just unfinished. So I think these last couple songs that they do they're obviously, I think they're just rushed written, rushed turned in. Like, let's just use these, because he had better stuff in the can that could have been easily replaced these two songs. He had better stuff. So it's again, I think it was rushed as far as his stuff. He just kind of got in there, got out. So okay, let's just do these 2 songs. Let's record these ones, and then I'm back to wherever, Europe or whatever, where they're filming, and that was it. So
Vancouver.
Okay. Well, Canada.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Paul described these songs as craptacular. I actually disagree somewhat with that, because While the City Sleeps, I think, is actually pretty cool. It's not that bad. It needs a bit more time in the oven. It's almost a little bit like a Naked City Part 2. While the City sleeps, you go from the Naked City to While the City Sleeps. It's trying, but it needs it needed the co-writer. It needed a Vinnie Vincent or a Holly Knight or someone to actually just take it and make it into something, because Paul clearly wasn't going to do anything other than, if that's what you're throwing at us, Gene, that's what we're throwing on the album, and we're just going to throw it on there. But I gave it 18 points.
Oh,
wow.
That's pretty high.
Yeah, no, I actually, it's not as bad as I remember it. I was actually smiling a little bit listening to it, thinking of Naked City and some of the vibe that he's trying to come across with, but not quite making it. Lonnie, While the City Sleeps.
Yeah, While the City Sleeps. Lyrics, I gave it a 2. Not great. Again, just very similar to a lot of the Gene songs on here. Melody, again, I gave it a 2. Just nothing, but it's just below average again.
Yeah.
It's just below average stuff. Lyrics and melody, just below average. And because of that taste, I just gave it a 2 also. I mean, I don't hate it, but I can't give it a 3 saying I really like it. So it ended up with 8 points. Just just a very forgettable song on the album.
No, here we are to the final song on the album, Murder in High Heels. And once again, I am an outlier. I gave this 21 points. I think this is Gene's.
What?
Yeah. You want to know
21
why?
points.
Yeah.
Oh my
Let's
god.
hear it.
Texture, Mark. It's all about the texture and how it's a total dynamic shift in terms of how he's working vocally, musically, and everything. I find it really interesting. It's something that stands out from everything else on the album. And I know that some of you are going to say, yeah, it's absolutely terrible. It's the worst thing. Of course it stands out. But I actually find it standing out in an interesting way. That, yeah, it's underdeveloped. But I think this is Gene's best song on the album.
Oh wow.
Mark, on what, 2 points, disagrees completely and thinks I'm a lunatic.
I have 1 point on this total because I have lyrics 1, melody 1, taste 1. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1.
Equals 1.
And I'll say this. This is one song that I, like I said before, I even right now, I don't remember how this song starts. I don't remember a single note of this song musically. I'm serious. I'm trying very hard to remember how this song starts. But the one thing that I do remember is the main reason why I can't stand this song. There's a part in this song where he does this murder in high heels.
love
Like
that.
it's like, oh god. I go, no. Why are you doing that? It sounds so tacky. Like I don't like it when he does that sort of, listen to me with my sexy deep voice. It's like, God, it's so terrible when he does that. That is the thing that I just really made me not like this song at all. And lyrically, it's just not good, and that didn't help it at all.
Hater. Okay. Daniel, you're not much better, actually, with this one.
How many points did I give it?
3.
3 points. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I'm just reading through the Behind the Mask book, and
What's it say? No comment?
Mitch Weissman has a pretty good quote that pretty much tell it all. He says like this: Gene was the sort of guy who would throw any idea against the wall and see if it would stick. For years, Gene had a book where he collected phrases. One of the phrases was murder in high heels. And that's the way this song goes. It's just a bunch of silly phrases thrown together, so it makes no sense. And like you said, Julian, the previous song, While the City Sleeps, sort of a cool title, and it makes you wonder what happens when the city sleeps. But the verses are just crap. He couldn't write about it. I mean, he's not a writer, this Gene Simmons guy.
No, Gene's is a concept guy.
Yeah, so, and Murder in High Heels is the same thing. It sounds kind of cool, but then, when you look at in this book, Gene Simmons says, Murder in High Heels was the name of a paperback book in the 50s. So he just stole the title. And the same goes with While the City Sleeps. Gene Simmons says, While the City Sleeps was written during the period when I got an acting bug. And if you look it up, it's in the he actually saw the title in the TV guide. There was a movie called While the City Sleeps. So you stole the titles, cool titles, but it didn't do anything with them. And unfortunately, but I still enjoy his vocals. I still enjoy listening to prime Gene in the middle. In the mid 80s, so I still can listen to the songs, but they could have been so much better.
Yeah, with Vinnie Vincent as co-writer.
Yeah,
transformed
exactly.
It, on the 8th day. There you go. Lonnie, 3 points as well.
Yeah, 3 points as well. Lyrics, I gave it a 2 and not a 1, just because they're kind of stupid in a way that they're funny. So I couldn't give it a 1 entirely because they're, they kind of make me laugh a little bit. So I couldn't just totally slam it. And melody, I think it's so underdeveloped. It's just so underdeveloped. Okay, I get what you're trying to do here, and you have a cool, catchy title that you think is great, but it's just like, oh, this is what I got. Okay, well, we need to close out the album here. Just throw it on the end. Okay, let's go to get some lunch. So,
yeah,
and taste is just a 1 because it's not a very good song. So it ends up with 3 points, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ken. I'm doing
Oh.
the defending of Gene on these last two. So
That's good. I'm proud of you. Joanne, I really am proud of you for that. I give it a 10 overall. I mean, the 3 lyrics, they're okay. Melody is missing there, so I got a 2 out of 5. And my taste, again, like the last one, I gave it a 2 out of 3 for taste because that's not exactly the Gene type of song that I want him writing. The part where he talked, murder and high heels. It sounds like something that it's like an advertisement or for a movie, kind of thing that they would say, an old time movie, and they say
From the 50s.
murder and high heels, kind of thing. And that's, I think he was going for something like that, but to me, it doesn't work. They should have done something with the chorus there. Definitely. That's the part I think that kills it for me. I think the riff is kind of cool. Yeah. But it just, the other part brings it down. So I just gave it a 10. It's not what, my favorite type of Gene song is.
all right, did I get everyone?
Yes.
I think so.
All right, let's wrap this up. I don't like doing long shows, but here we are approaching 2 hours. Invasion versus Animalize. Who wins? Who
Animalize.
made the better? Who made the
Animalize
better choice?
for sure.
Yeah, I like Animalize better.
But I have to say, some of the songs on Invasion could have been great on Animalize.
Probably.
Yeah, there are 7 of them that could have been. Now, Ken, don't look at me like I've just eaten a crayon, but Animalize or Invasion?
I gotta go with Animalize. I like Invasion. I mean, I like it.
Singer is
not
crap.
that bad, but it's not kissified or whatever you want to call it. It's not Kiss, so Animalize.
Lonnie.
It's tough.
What?
It is. I do like that.
Have you listened to Invasion in the last 5 years?
Sure, absolutely.
Sure, for sure. Okay.
I do
Favorite
like
running album.
that. It's good. Shoot You Full of Love. That's pretty good. I mean, it's about as tongue in cheek as Burn Bitch Burn. But
Well, Vinnie Vincent's lyrics, they are creepy.
They are creepy.
They are
are
really
creepy.
creepy. But Gene is kind of funny, but Vinnie is creepy.
They are creepy. And I like the song Invasion. I like the song Invasion a whole lot.
I
It's
love
really
that
good.
song.
Other than the final horn the last 3 minutes, which is just like, oh my god. I feel like I'm gonna I don't know. But I'm gonna say Invasion just because I'm gonna say Invasion.
Wow.
I like Invasion.
Wow.
Yeah, no,
I need to
think
re-listen
some
to
of
that
the
record.
some of those Invasion songs would have been great if Vinny had stayed in the band for a third album. I mean, come on, he had the demos at the time. Twisted, easily there. Shoot You Full of Love, easily there. Animal, easily there.
Yeah.
Boys Are Gonna Rock, probably
Oh,
not.
for sure.
Yeah, that would have been good.
For
Gypsy
sure.
in Her Eyes, I think Gypsy is
Oh,
better than
that's
Thrills in the Night, but
Yeah,
Paul would never have
probably.
gone for it. So
Probably not.
he was better off doing his own thing. But I
Yeah.
prefer Animalize. I'm a Kiss guy. I love Invasion though. That the song is really good. All right, let's do the rankings here to wrap up. Lonnie
But
likes
just-
this album.
Real quick, Julian. Have we ever done anything on Vinnie Vincent's records?
No, we probably need to.
Probably.
Yeah.
I would like. I think November is the anniversary. Well, 86. So,
Yeah.
we could talk about it in
That
November.
could be
Maybe
cool.
do one for the Invasion album. That'd be fun. But let's wrap this show up right now with the rankings on the album. Overall, Lonnie likes this album the least out of us. I think it's a cumulative score for him of 34.44.
Toddler.
I had to
Mark
say
is-
Invasion.
The toddler.
Mark is next up on 35.5 points, followed by Ken, middle of the pack, Ken, 43 and a bit, and then me, 49, and then Daniel loves this album. The songs themselves, in last place, Lonely as the Hunter on 26 points, followed by Murder in High Heels on 39, While the City Sleeps on 44,
Yeah.
Burn Bitch Burn on 49, So actually, this panel
Gene
thinks that
songs.
Burn Bitch Burn is the best of Gene's songs. Wow.
It is.
It is.
Get All You Can Take on 78, Under the Gun on 84, Thrills in the Night on 93, and then a big quantum leap up to 127 points. I've Had Enough, Into the Fire, but obviously the winner is Heaven's on Fire, 135 points,
Yeah.
the most popular songs on the album. What do you think about Animalize? 40 years on, does it sit well with you? Go revisit it. Go give it a listen. Put on those headphones. Listen to the remaster so you can hear the drums in all their glory. What do you think about it? I'm going back to listen to 2 new remasters that came out this week. Judas Priest Rockarola has been remixed. That's their 1974 album celebrating its 50th anniversary. It uses longer versions of most of the songs, and it's a bit tinny, but it sounds pretty good in terms of its clarity. And Queen 1 is coming out, originally Queen, and they've got the first song out for that, and they've given it the treatment and really boosted Roger Taylor's drums.
Wasp, first album.
Oh,
yes, they're just re-releasing it again and again. Call me when they do the demos for that. Once they figure out who plays
Half Speed Mastered, I think. On that one.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I've got the album already from the Snapper reissues. So that's it. Animalize, 40 years on. Good luck, Bengals, this week. It's going to be an interesting week. And while we were speaking, Liverpool lost, so I'm not a happy guy. So that's it, audience. Thank you all for chiming in with a fantastic bunch of comments today. We appreciate you watching us live. Thank you to Lonnie, to Mark, Daniel, and Ken. And we shall see you next time.
Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.